Pia tutaki mambo relief. Sababu tunatosha kulisha watoto wetu, familia yetu. The main source of livelihood of in the drylands is livestock production, extensive livestock production, which some people also refer to as pastoralism.
As the sun rises in Kenya's Isiolo County, local livestock herders are getting ready to face another day. Life out here is tough and full of uncertainty as the herders grapple with shrinking pasture and the impacts of a changing climate. Arid and semi-arid regions have a highly variable climate. In Isiolo County, communities have to continuously contend with droughts or floods, making the need to adapt critical. When droughts hit, they wipe out herds of cattle, and herders are looking for ways to cope with the harsh climatic conditions in the area. To help the herders adapt, researchers with ASSAR are working on a project that explores various ways of survival based on a customary resource management.
In ASSAR project, we are mainly looking at how the pastoral communities are affected by climate change and how they are responding to these changes that not only include climate variability and change, but also other socioeconomic and environmental changes.
Through research and participatory scenario analysis workshops with the communities, researchers established that more sustainable pasture management can help people living in the drylands adapt to the changing environment.
So among the list of the very many options that they have for addressing this problem, they again prioritized two that they thought were very, very key, the topmost. And this was mainly the approach of partitioning the grazing land or zoning the grazing land into different areas that could be used or can be used at different times of the year. Deda tulikuwa mababu zetu kutoka zamani wako na deda.
The big thing here is DEDA. DEDA is a traditional institution which guides or is mandated by the local Boran pastoralists for the purpose of natural resource management. This traditional institution normally arranges or develops a grazing pattern which guides communities' access to pasture and water.
Wakati tuliawacha deda, alafu tulikuwa tumekuwa maskini, ng'ombe na kufa, sisi tunakuwa maskini zaidi. Tukifuata hii maneno hii sasa deda kurudi, after miaka 10 sisi tumetajirika kwa sababu ng'ombe bana kufanga majani tele.
Katika hii deda majukumu ya kina mama huwa inakuanga mingi sana zaidi wa baba. Hii wazee wa deda wakikaa kwa kivuli wakizungumza maneno ya yani ng'ombe ama mifugo mali iko, huwa wa mama hawasemangi na mdomo, tunakimbilia, huwa tunahudhuria na macho yetu.
Traditional system of DEDA has clearly defined land and planned it according to 3 different grazing zones units, and there is one specific we call wet season, which they call wet season grazing area. That is an area which is largely vast, It has very short-lived and very nutritious pasture, and pastoralists normally go in time when there is subsurface water. And then there is a specific dry season grazing area where the pastoralists, through their traditional system, move to when the pasture in the wet season grazing areas get now drier, and also the subsurface waters have all dried up. They move to ponds, they move to shallow wells, where areas they can use those shallow wells and ponds to access pasture within the dry season grazing area. There is a specific area they have preserved for the time of drought, and they call it the drought reserves. And within their traditional planning system, it's very clear, it's areas which have long-standing pastures, areas with permanent water sources like boreholes, like even springs, areas which they access when they are really in need of pasture, and they are normally reserved for time of drought.
ASSAR has been facilitating peer-to-peer learning to equip herders with skills to manage pasture and learn about camel rearing. The herders learn from other communities in the county who are already into camel keeping.
The second most preferred scenario or option for addressing the problem was changing of the herd composition, because what we have realized is that the pastoral landscape is mainly shifting from grassland to a sort of woody vegetation dominated kind of grazing land. So the browsers, and these are animals who feed on the trees and shrubs, would be more favored by that kind of environment as compared to the grazers who rely mainly on the grass. So the shift towards keeping more of the browsers, and this I mean goats and camel, is something that they also favored.
Training of the camel keeping to communities which are within Isiolo and outside Isiolo. First, the benefit is that a camel, due to climate change, is being adopted by many who have not been keeping the camels. In particular, like Isiolo, we have the larger Boran communities, which are cattle ranching communities, cattle keeping communities, who are now, due to climate change, which has affected them, losing a lot of, in each drought, losing a lot of cattle, are now coming to be introduced to camel keeping because it will withstand those drought.
Maziwa yanaanza kuongezeka. Saa hii saa ya mvua 6,000 naingia kwa siku. Sichukui maziwa nje, maziwa hii area ya hii Isiolo tu ndio tunachukua.
Hii ngamia pia mzuri kwa sababu wakati wa ukame anachukua muda mrefu.
Leo nimejifunza mengi kuhusu ngamia. Nimeona kuna ngamia aina 3. Kuna ngamia ambaye iko na maziwa kwa wingi, na kuna ngamia ambaye iko na maziwa kidogo, na kuna ile iko na maziwa kidogo lakini maziwa yake hata kama ni kidogo huwa inakuanga tamu.
Sehemu zetu kweli kuna ngamia nyingi, lakini bado kidogo ufugaji wa ngamia tunafuga, lakini bado hatujapata umuhimu yake ama ile manufaa kutoka ngamia bado hatujapata vizuri. Lakini wale wakaaji wa sehemu za Isiolo, wale wanakaa sehemu za Burat, tuliona kwamba wafugaji kweli wanafuga kama sisi. Ufugaji ni moja, lakini kile wameshinda sisi naye ni kuitunza mfugo yao na kupata mapato kutoka ngamia. Ile ufugaji biashara.
The herders are being trained on growing grass for their animals. This will increase their resilience and minimize the need to move their animals in search of pasture.
What we are focused on all along is pasture scarcity.
Mfugo ikiathirika zaidi, kuna wakati huwa tunanunua, serikali inanunua inapeleka kwa wakulima.
Kwa sababu hii kitu tukifuata mali ya ukame kwa ngamia mali yetu nafikiri itaisha. Kwa vile tuliona vile na bando wa nyasi.
The challenge is getting the seed. That is the challenge. Is to find the seed, because even Kenya seed right now have no grass seed in stock, nothing.
For the herders, shifting to the ASSAR system and increased camel and goat rearing will be a long journey. This is just the beginning.
Wale ambao wabana jua DEDA ni nini, akuje afunzi sisi tueleze hawa.
Tumejifunza mengi. Yaani ukitembea, kutembea mengi ndio huona mengi.
Sasa mimi nikitoka hapa nitabadilisha ngamia kwa ng'ombe kwa ngamia. Mbuzi kwa kondoo. Kwa maana hiyo ndo inaweza dumu siku ya jilali.